Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today we're exploring a deeply fascinating story that, well, it honestly challenges everything we think we know about perfection. I am so thrilled to share this with you because it completely flips the script on how we view our own perceived weaknesses. We spend so much time hiding our flaws, right? Covering up our cracks, trying to present this flawlessly polished version of ourselves to the world. But what if those exact imperfections are actually the source of our greatest strengths? What if the things we're most ashamed of are exactly what the world needs from us? We're going to break down an old, incredibly profound story today that shows us exactly why our flaws create beauty.
So here's a question for you. Can a flaw actually be a blessing? I want you to really sit with that for a second. We live in a world that is just obsessed with flawless execution, aren't we? We measure success by how perfectly a task is done, how efficiently a goal is hit, and how little we mess up along the way. But, this framing kind of forces us to measure perfection versus actual impact. If something doesn't work exactly as intended, bam, we immediately label it a failure. But as we'll see in the material we're diving into today, sometimes a deviation from the perfect plan is literally the very thing that creates a beautiful outcome.
Okay, let's dive into this. Our story centers on a really simple daily routine. We've got an old farmer who carries water every single day. He uses two clay pots hanging from a wooden pole across his shoulders. It's this classic foundational image of hard work and persistence. There's no complex machinery here, right? Just a person, a pole, and two vessels meant for a single crystal clear purpose, transporting water from the source back to the home. This sets the stage for our subjects, and it immediately establishes a baseline of expectation. These pots have one job. So let's look at the two tools the farmer is using. On one side, we have what we'll call the perfect pot. It does exactly what it was designed to do. It holds the water, it doesn't leak a single drop, and it delivers its full capacity at the end of the long walk. It is the absolute picture of flawless efficiency. But on the other side, we have the cracked pot. And this one has a small crack in its side. Because of this flaw, it loses water the entire walk back. And man, we so often set up our own lives in this exact same binary, don't we? We judge ourselves against that perfect pot standard, totally believing that success is purely about delivering a full, flawless capacity every single time. Which brings us to a pretty dramatic metric, 50%. By the time the old farmer finally reached his home after that long walk, the cracked pot had lost half of its water. Just think about that quantifiable loss for a second. If you were evaluated at your job and you only delivered 50% of what was expected, you'd probably consider that a massive failure, right? Half the effort, half the water, literally just drained away into the dirt. Day after day, this pot is only doing half of its designated job. And because of that 50% metric, we see the real emotional toll it takes. The text tells us simply, but oh so heavily, the cracked pot felt deeply ashamed. Think about how relatable that is. When we feel like we just aren't measuring up to the perfect standard next to us, when we feel like we're constantly leaking our potential because of some internal flaw or crack, shame is usually the immediate result. It is such a heavy, quiet burden. The pot didn't just feel bad, it felt a deep, internalized shame about its very nature, about this crack it just couldn't fix. That internal crisis eventually boils over into this truly heartbreaking apology. The pot finally says to the farmer, "I'm sorry. Because of my crack, I can never do my job properly." The pot is completely fixated on the mechanics of the job, delivering water. And because it fails at that one specific mechanical task, it believes its entire existence is just inadequate. It's carrying this immense weight of perceived failure every single day, completely blind to absolutely anything outside of its own inadequacy. But here is where the narrative takes a sudden, magnificent turn. The farmer doesn't scold the pot. He doesn't throw it away or try to patch it up with clay to make it perfect. The text tells us the farmer smiled. And honestly, this changes everything. It is a massive shift in perspective. That smile signals that the farmer knows something the pot doesn't. He isn't angry about the 50% loss of water. Actually, he's entirely at peace with it. He recognizes the crack not as a failure to be punished, but as a reality to be utilized. The farmer then replies with a question that I really want to pose directly to you as well. He asks, "Have you noticed the flowers blooming along your side of the path?" It's such a brilliant redirection of attention. See, the pot had been so completely consumed by looking inward at its own flaw, just staring at its own crack and the water leaking out, that it never once looked out at the world around it. The farmer is basically inviting the pot to look up from its shame and actually observe the environment it's been moving through every single day. And when the pot finally looks up, it sees beautiful, colorful flowers stretching all the way home. And this brilliantly illustrates the point because, crucially, they are only on its side of the path. The perfect pot side is just barren dirt. The cracked pot had been entirely blind to this hidden beauty. It had been creating a literal masterpiece of color and life every single day, completely by accident, just by being its authentic, flawed self. Let's walk through the mechanics of how this actually happened, because, well, it wasn't an accident on the farmer's part at all. Months ago, knowing the pot had a leak, the farmer scattered flower seeds on that specific side of the dirt path. Then, every single day, the spilled water from the cracked pot, the very thing the pot thought was its ultimate failure, acted as this vital, moving irrigation system, hydrating those seeds. And today, as a direct result of that daily, consistent flaw, beautiful flowers bloom. The farmer took an imperfection and structurally integrated it into a much larger, beautiful plan. And what's really interesting here is the tangible impact of that leaked water. The farmer explains what these flowers actually do. First, they bring beauty to everyone who walks that path. The whole community benefits from it. Second, the farmer uses those very flowers to decorate their home. So the pot thought its only value was getting water to the house, but in reality, it was bringing life to the path and bringing beauty to the inside of the home in a way the perfect pot never ever could. The flaw had an incredible, unintended, yet profoundly valuable purpose. So the crucial point is how this completely flips our understanding of value. The pot initially defined itself by a weakness, failing to deliver its full capacity of water. It was totally stuck in that pass-or-fail mindset, but reality revealed that this exact same trait was actually a blessing for others, sustaining a gorgeous path of flowers. Now, the crack didn't magically go away. The pot is still flawed, but the context of that flaw completely flipped from a source of agonizing shame to an extraordinary source of pride. And that realization, it changes the pot's entire existence moving forward. The text tells us that from that day on, it stopped feeling ashamed. It proudly carried water, knowing it had a special purpose. It didn't suddenly become a perfect pot. It just became a self-aware, cracked pot. By integrating its flaw and understanding its unique contribution, it found a special purpose in life. It could do something the flawless pot could never do. It just took a shift in perspective to actually see it. Which brings us to the core moral derived directly from our source material today. Your imperfections can become your greatest strength when used for good purpose. This is exactly why this story matters so deeply to how we operate in our own lives. We spend so much energy, so much time trying to perfectly seal up all our cracks. But those vulnerabilities, those unique quirks, the very things we think make us quote-unquote less than, they are so often the exact mechanisms through which we connect with others, foster growth, and bring unique beauty into the world. It's all about how they're channeled. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final, vital question to reflect on. What cracks do you have, and what beautiful flowers might they be watering? Seriously, stop staring at the water you think you're losing and take a moment to look at the path behind you. You might just be amazed by the beautiful things your imperfections have been growing all along.